On this episode of How the West Pertains to English 101, we look at how the Transcontinental Railroad provided framework for locomotion in the future of America. Colonel Dodge, railroad worker turned Army officer turned Civil War hero, turned chief of construction for Union Pacific, the man that led the country to victory on the battlefield and victory on the tracks.
Before the war, I was a rail worker for Union Pacific, part of the early surveys of Iowa and the preliminary surveys of the Union Pacific route. Union Pacific done figured out he done such a good job before the war, maybe he'd do a good job after the war. And I did.
But Colonel Dodge wasn't the only veteran in the rail building business. Many of his workers were veteran soldiers.
It's true. After I started hiring soldiers that had been discharged from the Army after the war, we was out there laying track faster than any of them Chinese out west or any of them Negroes down south. We even had Irishmen with us.
As work progressed through Nebraska, progress was interrupted by the progression of aggression from progressive Indian attacks.
Them Indians was always trying to keep us from building them tracks, so we was always fighting with them. Certain places along the routes, they would have Indian snipers set up. But it didn't matter because we always had the weapon superiority with our guns and whatnot. Yep, it was tough times. I came up with the idea to have half of my men building working tracks and the other half of my men would be guarding us against the Indians. And it worked. It worked all the time. We got them tracks laid down and we got them Indians off our backs. Except for one time, they done got Billy Baker right in the eye with an arrow. Right in the eye.
This Indian situation gave Colonel Dodge an idea.
Yep, I sure did. I wanted to take some of them Indians that I'd done captured during my winter campaign and use them to work on the tracks. Would have made things a hell of a lot easier for all of us. They always trying to keep us from building them tracks, so why not make them help? Government said no to that. I never found out why. Point of the story is, them Indians was always trying to keep us from building them tracks. And they never figured out how to destroy the tracks. They just wanted to keep us from building them, but they couldn't figure out how to destroy them after we done built them. That's why they never won. Them Indians weren't going to keep us from laying track across our God-given land.
The Indian conundrum wasn't the only factor slowing the progress of the workers. Due to their diet and poor hygiene, the workers smelled worse than cat poop drying in the sun, and were prone to illness.
We was eating mostly beef and bread all the time. It was always beef and always bread, and all we had to drink with us was black coffee. Sometimes we ate that too. We couldn't hardly ever clean ourselves because it seemed like every time we'd get near a body of water, all the men would get sick. So we just never cleaned ourselves. We'd always wait until we'd get to them end of track towns. You know, we'd build our track, end up in a town, and we never were clean when we got there. It was always real bad. But my men, they took advantage of what they could when they got there. And they used their hard-earned money. They spent all their hard-earned money. They went to saloons, and they went to brothels, and they went to gambling houses.
And that, my friends, is what made the Transcontinental Railroad a success. Whiskey, blackjack, and hookers.